Hey guys, how's it going? It's Kara here with another Exos Heroes video, and in today's video, me reviewing another hero. What I figured it would be a lot more fun to do is have a theme going where there's at least some method into the reviews. And last time, since I did FC Tantalo, I figured today is the next one's going to be on this list, and I'm going to cover FC Jin. Just like how I did in the Tantalo video, we're going to go over his kid, talk about how good he is, whether or not you should pull for him, and then which content he should be used in. If I could get a like on this video, that'd be awesome. Also, subscribe to the channel if you want more Exos Heroes content. So with that out of the way, let's get into the review. Okay, so we have FC Jin. Let's break down his kit. Let's talk about his stats and just kind of the typical stats you could expect out of this character. Whatever the main part of the passive is going to be a really good big clue on which kind of stats the character is going to have. As you can see here, is going to have high hit, low HP relatively to other characters, has a high critical hit rate, has a high attack speed, very low survivability, high attack, high hit, high speed. It makes sense from an assassin style character. That's going to be the stat distribution you're going to see out of this character. So then now let's break down the passive, where he has actually quite a bit to his passive here. Finishing blow 3, this is just the typical thing when you have finishing blow 3. Attacks if an enemy takes damage and its health drops up to 10% or less, and then gains 1 mana. It's a very straightforward passive. It's you get someone low, he just goes at a turn and tries to attack them. And then characters like a Loom, block characters will get in the way of that because of how they provoke. A way around that, if you have him in the old pre-rank 1 machine set, he won't be affected by that. He'll actually go and attack that character and not get stuck by the provoke from those block characters. So it's kind of interesting thing to keep in mind. So branding grants a branding mark when a skill strikes a target afflicted with charm. And then charm is over here by Jhin. Jhin here, she has the charm passive. Afflicts enemies with lower attack than self with the charm mark and decreases their attack speed by 30. So it's a good thing to keep in mind that not only do you really need to have Jhin on the team, preferably FC Jhin. You're going to really need FC Jhin. You don't really want to run the original Jhin. You need to have her complete as much stats as possible to make sure she's applying that charm debuff on these characters. Then, so they're going to be slower. You'll be able to apply your effects with FC Jhin here. Now that we understand exactly what we're going to need to be able to apply there, let's go back to this passive here. So branding inflicts branding mark when a skill strikes a target afflicted with charm. So mark increases 20 dodge for self when an enemy is marked with branding, and mark decreases hit by 10 of the target every turn, removing all branding marks on enemy when attacked. You're going to want to spread this out so you can get as much dodge and you constantly decrease hit. It's really not crazy impactful, to be honest. Just a little bit more dodge. 20 dodge goes a long way, but in the grand scheme of things, it's really not going to change too much. Okay, so then now we got the Heartstrike passive, which I think is a very good passive. Afflicts Heartstrike a level 1 to one enemy with the highest current health when the battle starts. Increases level of the mark when a marked target is damaged by an ally with the Heartstrike skill. Gains 1 mana per enemy mark level at the start of turn. The mark effect stacks as the level increases. All effects can't be removed. Inflicts Heartstrike level 1 to one enemy with the highest current health when a marked target dies. So essentially what's happening is you start the match off. If you have the most health on the enemy team, you're going to be taking the Heartstrike passive. Then as people with the Heartstrike passive attack that character, it's going to stack from level 1 to level 2 and level 2 to level 3. So having multiple characters with the Heartstrike passive is ideal, but there's a lot of really good characters nowadays, so being able to fit all those characters on one team is a little tough. So you usually only see like 1 or 2 on a particular team. So then right off the start, and if you kill that person, it's going to transfer to the next highest attack. So it's a really cool passive in the sense that it constantly switches between all the members of the team. It really helps you finish people off. So the Heartstrike passive level 1 decreases the attack speed of the target by 20. I think that's a really good thing to start. Always reducing or changing the turn order is always a very good thing. Then Heartstrike level 2 decreases defense of the target by 1,000 as stats are going up. That's getting less and less impactful, but still very good. And then lastly, Heartstrike level 3 deals 200% damage to all enemies upon activation. Then afflicts targets with blind over time, deals 2,000 damage to targets every turn. So the blind mechanic is very useful. You get, for a lot of characters, having them blind like that is going to completely remove them from the match, and then you can either focus on killing other characters or you could take him out and then move that passive over to others. It's just a really versatile and useful passive. Okay, and then the rest of his kit, his A1 here is deals 180% damage to one enemy, special resets turn if target dies. Ambush afflicts target with silence for 3 turns, and mana burn 1 mana if target is charmed. So I think that part right there, the afflicts target with silence for 3 turns, is really impactful, especially on a move that only requires 1 mana. So you'll be able to, not only is your character really fast, if you have charm on them, then you'll be able to just silence them off the start. It's a very useful thing to do. I do want to say though, nowadays with bind being so accessible with unleashed potential, I can totally see this not being nearly as useful as it used to be, because you could essentially do that with Rara now, because on her A1 or in her A2, but on her A1 that you can do right off the start, you bind the character that you hit, which means they can't gain mana. So I want to say it's kind of diluted the usefulness of this ability here. Lastly, has a 2 mana move. It deals 375% damage to an enemy, afflicts target with silence for 4 turns, and mana burn if target is charmed. And then let's talk about his unleashed potential effects. I think these are really going to make or break. The big thing, it looks like it's just going to increase more damage. So the unleashed potential effect on the passive is deals an additional 1000 piercing damage when attacking enemy, and then afflicts target with bind for 2 turns when the attack hits. It seems pretty redundant. One of the coolest things about this effect was the silence capability, but then having silence and bind on there doesn't seem that great in my opinion. And then afflicts target with bind as well over here. So I think it's almost like he lost a lot of his uniqueness because other characters are doing something similar enough, plus having all of their kit on there. So I think he's one of the big losers out of the unleashed potential effects. So, and he just doesn't do enough damage to really justify him compared to other characters nowadays. So team synergies, obviously, he's very attached to the hip with Jhin. And the thing about Jhin is that she doesn't really take over games or win games for you. Whereas you look at the other generals in Rachel, Shufraken, and in Bathory, all of those do, like, those are game enders, style characters. That Jhin is more of a utility based champion, so you really want to pack that punch to be able to close out matches. And I really feel like this faction here is SO Republic, as Taurus Republic faction is really lacking that punch on its own, except for, you could argue Diva, especially with her single target abilities, but the main thing she does is this, which is just not enough anymore. When Signature Force first came out, you can argue that it did a ton of damage relatively, whereas nowadays it doesn't do enough to break through these Greenland walls that are happening. So that's why I think this faction is kind of on the downswing in general when it comes to a PvP perspective. And he's kind of one of the big losers out of the Unleashed Potential addition to the game. It doesn't mean he's bad. The stuff that I would use him in, I think he could be pretty useful in challenges, because the machine faction is really lacking. So you need as many good characters as you possibly can get when it comes to the machine faction if you're trying to break through challenges. I ended up using him. I think some of the best characters for challenges are going to be, you definitely want to have a closer like that in either Baraka or in Jhin. There's definitely better options, but he can definitely be useful because he's fast. He has low mana moves. He's only single target, but you combine that with a couple AoEs, he'll be able to help out there. I think for Machine Day on Dragon, he's very useful, so you definitely want to use him for that. But he's definitely not a go-to character for most content. If you are heavily invested in the Jhin faction, he's definitely a staple there. But I want to say that faction is really kind of being relegated to as a support faction, so a lot of people just have Jhin by herself, or Jhin maybe Shell, something like that, whereas he's kind of getting left out. But if you're having a dedicated at least 3 members team with that faction, he would definitely make that cut of 3 characters from that faction. At this point in the game, he's still a good character if you're invested in him. I don't blame you, but there's definitely a whole bunch of other options. Maybe this faction will get something that really boosts him up and he's going to be really useful for that faction, but there's just too much redundancy in his kit, and then when you compare him to other characters, they're really outclassing him at the moment, so he's definitely taken a pretty big dive. But he would be a very good second or third team in tag team, in my opinion. But that's about it at the moment. He's really not nearly as good as he used to be, and I think it's worth really highlighting on why that is. And I really think it comes down to doesn't do enough damage, and the Unleashed Potential just really didn't help. The Unleashed Potential effects really didn't do him any favors. So that's pretty much it when it comes to this Jhin guide. Let me know in the comments below if you agree or disagree. I am kind of not too thrilled when it comes to the character, so I can see a lot of fans of Jhin being a little bummed out by that. So definitely let me know in the comments. And with that, guys, I am out. Peace.